Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CSC Town Hall event, The Future of Automobile Manufacturing. My name is Jeff Caruso, and I'll be your moderator. I'm Senior Managing Editor at CSC, and we are very proud to bring you the CSC Town Hall on a very interesting topic. Now, when you buy a car, you may be impressed by all the great technology in it that makes it easier to use, safer, and more enjoyable to drive. But there is even more going on behind the scenes, where technology is transforming the entire industry, from the supply chain to product development and manufacturing to service and support, and of course the technology that the consumer sees directly. In today's town hall, we'll look at how trends like cloud computing, big data, mobility, and other technologies are coming together to make this one of the most exciting times in the automobile industry. Now, before we dive into the panelist introductions, I'd like to let you know that this event is being streamed online, not only inside the town hall environment at csc.com, but also on CSC's Google Plus page and on our YouTube channel. Viewers are welcome to submit questions that you'd like for me to bring to the panel's attention. You can post questions to Twitter using the hashtag CSCTownHall, one word, and I'll pick out the best questions and pose them to the panel. Our first guest today is Christian Kloppel. Christian, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you, Jeff. I'm with CSC now since 16 years, based in Wiesbaden, Germany, in the German headquarters. I'm heading up the Mobile Business Center of Excellence. It's around 13 people strong, dedicated core team in Central and Eastern Europe, covering all aspects around smartphones and tablet PCs and how they can be leveraged to improve our business. We are talking about things like mobile strategy, which is currently the most important question to most of our customers. About end-to-end solution development, application development, of course around mobile security, which is always the #1 concern, and last but not least about enterprise mobility management, which is everything around managing all the devices, managing applications and the processes around it.
All right, thank you, Christian. Our next guest is Paul Scott. Paul, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Paul Scott. I'm an industry executive with CSC. I have the special focus on the automotive industry, where I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of OEMs across the world in Europe, Asia, and North America. I'm looking forward to speaking to you all today and sharing a few insights in challenges in the market, in the OEM market, and how IT can help support those challenges.
All right, thanks, Paul. Now, before we get into the questions, let's just start by taking a few minutes to frame the conversation. Paul, maybe you can discuss what's happening at a high level.
Thank you. If you could just put a couple of slides together, we can throw up a slide. That's great. So, the big challenge for the OEM is to grow in the BRIC countries, but we've also got to react into the downturn in the European market. We've of course got the brand strength, and we've got global networks. We're making a lot of money through spare parts management. We're actually making all the profits through the spare parts management, the financial services part, and in some cases in premium brands through leather seats and navigation systems. So this is a key strength that we have. This is being maybe eroded with the move towards new drivetrains, where electric batteries in vehicles, that's going to impact on how I'm going to make my revenues in the spare parts management. One of the key weaknesses we have is in terms of cost. All the challenges into cost, reducing costs all the time. We've got huge exploding costs of data management, data storage. We've got data in the office side. We've got telematics data coming from the vehicles, which we're trying to analyze. We've got to try and get these under control. Another aspect is to look at our understanding of our customers. We have several different silos in the OEMs, from the marketing department through sales, customer service. We've got the dealers. Everybody's got their own little spot of customer data. And actually, we try to get to one set of enriched data in order to really treat the customer, find the customers, and treat the customer in the way he needs to be treated with. So this we see as a big challenge, is to try and align these different sets of customer data. If we can move on to the next slide, we want to talk about some of the opportunities that we're facing. So those OEMs who can meet the challenge and engage with the digital natives out there stand a chance to win the race in selling the cars. If you think about my last time I purchased a car, 80–90% of my decision-making process was done online, either referring to other people's forum or consolidating or configuring my car through the to the OEM's car configurator. It's only for the very last bit to choose the color or to choose the seats that actually went into the dealer. So we've got to find a way to actually address and talk to these digital natives in the way they want to be talked to. At the end of the day, if we don't pick these people up, if we don't speak to them, then it's easier for them to go across to the next door neighbor car dealer, and they're likely to go there and we lose the sale. So that's one key opportunity that we have, is to try and pick these up earlier before the competition do. Another aspect is I guess the data-driven services. So there's a huge amount of data out there, either from the telematics in the car or in the World Wide Web. And how can we use that to generate additional revenue streams, whether it's in increasing new car sales or service or spare parts revenues? So maybe we move on to see what's the impact for IT there. What's the challenges where can IT play a role to support that? Well, IT has got a really key role in reducing the costs of IT as a total. How to make change the cost from fixed cost into service cost. They've got a challenge to make sure that the digital assets are protected. Not only digital assets from the engineering point of view, but customer data, and also the telematics data that's coming from the car. IT must play a role to enable the systems to produce one version of the truth of our customer, so that we're able to utilize that information and target our customers directly. We've got to build platforms, infrastructures to analyze the massive data out there, and use that to increase our sales revenue, our spare parts revenue. So IT has got a huge challenge in the process, and big part to play in the future of the automotive industry. Maybe let's move on to the one last slide to set the scene. And this is really CSC's strategy roadmap in the automotive business. We call it driving in the cloud. Has not all to do with cloud computing, but it's our philosophy and how we see the automotive business going in the future. We saw it on the left-hand side of this picture. We see the traditional parts of an OEM going from the drawing board, manufacturing, through the procurement and manufacture. And this picture represents the whole life cycle of the car, from the drawing board through manufacturing into the after sales. Now, the right-hand side of this chart, it shows the picture of the influences of maybe three technological trends. One is the whole impact of the social media and the ability for people to discuss and share information. The second is the whole topic about big data and how to capture this data, how to analyze this data for use. And the third aspect is the impact of cloud computing, which enables us to deploy applications on a quick basis and make everything as a service. So that was just a short introduction to where we see the challenges in the market from a business point of view, also the challenges from an IT point of view, but rather how IT can help the business really go through into the next 10 years and support the business in that way, and CSC's approach to how we're addressing that. So,
all right, thank you, Paul. Now I see Bertold Pukta has joined us, and I know you had some technical difficulties, Bertold, but can you hear me now? All right, you might want to unmute your microphone because I think we can't hear you. Can you unmute? Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Excellent, thanks. Sorry, folks, for being late.
No problem. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your perspective, and then we'll get into the questions.
Sure, my pleasure. Well, folks, I'm one of the few people who started their career working as a rocket scientist, and then I spent some years in the automotive design and engineering headquarters at Porsche in Stuttgart. And then after moving into the IT side of the house of the business, I subsequently worked in global customer relationship and operation leadership roles on both the customer and the supplier side. With HP, with Porsche, with T-Systems, with CSC in North America and in Europe. So over the past 15 years, my focus has been on the challenge on how to transform the needs in the automotive industry along their process chain into innovative ICT solutions.
Okay, thanks, Bertold. I'm glad to have you with us. So Paul was actually just talking a little bit about, everything that we're going to talk about today, but he did mention one thing about all the data that can be collected from automobiles, and we do hear a lot about big data and how that can be used in business. Is there a way to turn this massive data that we are collecting or could be collecting into information that could be used?
Yeah, in fact, big data technology opens up so many new possibilities for new business models and revenue streams for the mass of the data that is out there and that can be collected and analyzed. And I think at the moment no one has really a clue, to what extent we will leverage that in the future. Let's have a look on two areas. First of all, there's location-based services, and this big question: who will win the race to own the business model and the revenue streams? Is it Silicon Valley? Is it the utilities companies with their billing systems, or is it the automotive OEMs who theoretically own and know the customer? This race on the big data, this is totally open at the moment, and the second aspect on that is all these patterns, these behavioral patterns that we can analyze from behavioral data. So lots of information can be gathered, from the car on certain behaviors. How often are you driving to the airport? How often are you going from New York to Charlotte? Or how often are you driving from Munich to your Swiss bank, and all that stuff? And this is of interest to many, companies and businesses that want to go to the market and are interested in this marketing data. And collected and analyzed in an appropriate way, these data can be so powerful, sensitive, and could be really a valuable asset to the company collecting and analyzing it, and then making it available in a consumable form.
Okay, thanks, Bertold. Paul, maybe you could elaborate a little bit on how you might make money from big data.
Yeah, actually, if we look at some really very quick ways to do that, I can think of two or three ways immediately. One is something we call sales acceleration, which is if we're looking at the CRM process, or how we actually acquire customers. The traditional approach is that the sales guy and the dealer is waiting for a customer to walk through the door, and then he captures him for an hour and a half and does his sales pitch, which is very, very good. But actually, we should be able to identify potential customers out there, depending on their behavior in the World Wide Web, whether they are surfing, whether they are actually configuring a car for the 5th time on the OEM website with little small changes, then probably the propensity of this person to buy a car is high, and maybe he's looking to make a purchase decision in the near future. If this guy then moves off and we see that he's configuring a competitor car, then we probably got to take action quickly and get in touch with him to try and bring him into our sales cycle and sell our car before he goes to the competition. So that is one aspect. Another aspect, we've heard that ladies with large hats have a larger propensity to buy larger and more expensive cars than ladies with no hats. So there's a lot of information out there which, if analyzed properly, can help us to actually sell cars and sell them quicker, or get people into our sales cycle quicker than we would otherwise. The second area is in the area of service or marketing. If we look at the car for the first 3 years of its life, probably the user is wanting to go back to the dealer and get his service and maintenance done there. You want to get the stamp in the book to show that its car's been properly maintained, maintain the value of the car when it's going into the second-hand market. Once it goes after 4 years, then the likelihood or the willingness of somebody to go back to the OEM or the authorized dealer may reduce. Yeah? If you go to a small repair shop around the corner, it's probably a bit cheaper. Maybe they don't use the original spare parts, so maybe that's double cheap as well. So you've got to try and address this, and how to bring these people, how to maintain these people into our service cycle, so that we're getting the service revenue and the spare parts revenue. So now, if we look at the data that we actually get a hold of, the OEM knows, of course, when the spare parts are due to be repaired, after how many miles the spare parts were. If we get the information from repair shops, authorized dealers, about when the last service was done, which parts were exchanged, maybe there's some accidents in the meantime, some are being replaced. We combine this information with some demographic information, like the person lives in the mountains, is it flatland, is the person male or female, is it a first car or a second car, we come to some sort of idea of when the next service would be due. The closer we can analyze this data, get all this data together, analyze it, the better and more targeted our marketing campaigns can be. In France, for example, it's no use sending a campaign out in August when everybody's on holiday. So we try and get more and more targeted and focused to capture these people. And what we've seen is by doing this more targeted marketing, we're actually getting the interest of the customers. We're bringing them into the dealers' repair shops, and we're capturing that very critical service and spare parts revenue. Maybe a small third aspect, and it's in the area of warranty, or actually fraud detection and warranty. It's a huge manual process in a lot of OEMs, and we think that maybe 15% of all warranty claims are potential fraud claims. So there's a lot of manual effort involved in analyzing and sifting through this. So what we actually like to do is to bring some analytics from the financial service industry, where this is also a topic in the insurance side, and bring these models and analysis, bring that into the warranty process of the OEM, and then try and reduce the cost of the fraudulent warranty claim. So those are three very quick examples of where OEMs can make money and save money right now.
That's very interesting. I have to remember the thing about the large hats for the future. Yes, so I want to talk a little bit about mobility. When we talk about the car and, of course, mobile devices, pretty much the two most important mobility items that people have today. But Christian, maybe you could talk a little bit about the ways in which those two things can be brought together when we talk about the car of the future.
Yeah, there's a variety of possibilities we see in integrating both things, the car and mobile device, as the most personal thing people can imagine at the moment. First of all, we use it, and we have a very feature-rich communication tool, of course. We have the phone, we have messaging systems, we are able to integrate social networking and social collaboration things. This is already being done today. We can use it as an information tool, for example, to enrich our navigation systems or infotainment systems with intelligent added information, traffic information, with news, with alerting, with, for example, real-time connectivity to back-end systems, business systems, and many, many more things. Currently, for example, we are talking about integrating Apple's Siri into the car as a real personal assistant. This thing is able to provide us real-time access to any kind of search engine or information system online in the cloud using Siri right on the smartphone. And this is being integrated by a couple of car vendors at the moment. Third thing is we have, of course, an entertainment tool. We are able to integrate cloud-based music services. We are able to access our iTunes music collection. This is quite a common thing at the moment already. What I think is really interesting is everything around using the smartphone as a telematics sensor. It could be used in a variety of ways. For example, we have information about the position of the driver. We have information about the speed. We are able to scan and gather information about surrounding devices or networks, about the noise level. We can use the camera. And on the other hand, when we link both things together, the car and the smartphone, we would be able to gather all kind of car data out of the car systems, like how much fuel is left, or what about the brakes? When do we have to go to the maintenance stop, for example? And in the future, this is something we see at the moment. In the future, I think we will talk about using a smartphone as a car key, as a driver's license, digital driver's license, as a credit card, just for example, to be used in case of car rentals or car sharing communities, or to apply personal settings, which you have already saved in a smartphone, which are automatically applied to the car once you get in and start the car. These are some things in the future which would already be possible today and which people are working on. There are basically two ways to do all this. First of all, we can, of course, develop software based on the specific individual car ecosystem platforms, the infotainment platforms, which are currently being opened for third-party developers, as it is done by Ford, for example, based on the QNX system. The other example would be not to use the in-car platform to do that, but to extend the in-car platform by the smartphone as kind of an additional platform, which would then, in this case, the car would just extend the features of the smartphone by an additional screen or additional controls like specific buttons or whatever. We personally at CSC would prefer the second option, since it is, well, I think maybe it's just a personal opinion of myself. I think we already have all these things, all the apps, all the features available with a smartphone. So why do we need to double this and do it another time in the car? We just need to integrate the smartphone and would have all these things. The only question is, how will OEMs handle this? As you all know, we have very strict security regularities, and we need to consider the strategies of the car OEMs. But this is basically what we are talking about when integrating both worlds.
Okay, thanks. Now, a question just came in from Twitter, and Christian, it seems like it is right along the lines of what you were just saying. Are cars the next big platform for apps developers?
Yeah, that's exactly what I just said. Yeah, maybe it is that is the fact, but yeah, I would prefer to develop apps for a smartphone and integrate them with a car. So see the car as an extended control or as an extended display for the smartphone. Why do it again on the car when we already have it on the smartphone? That would be my question. Right. But it is indeed becoming a platform for developers. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Now, one of the biggest challenges for OEMs, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to dive in further, is trying to reduce costs. So, Bertold, maybe you could talk a little bit about how IT could play a role in reducing costs.
Sure. Well, first step is moving apps to the cloud to provide infrastructure as a service, so that, for example, when the market demand, for automotive is going down, that the IT costs are scaling accordingly. So factory output goes down, IT costs go down. Another example is the flexible adaptation to peak customer demand. The OEM is launching a new car. Everyone goes to the car configurator. The next weekend, everyone wants to configure his personal individual car. The network demand, the app demand will tremendously go up, and cloud solutions are, reacting to that in a very flexible way without, increasing heavily the IT costs on the customer side. So this really makes it flexible and enables the OEMs to respond to the changing business needs. And another thing is, when you think of one business that we do, where we are providing a lot of embedded software engineering development, and now moving towards a so-called shared approach where we develop software based on AutoSAR, which makes it much more easier for the OEMs to share the costs and to use the same software that goes into the black boxes in the car, as this is based on AutoSAR. These are just a few examples on how to bring costs down or keep them down.
Okay, thanks, Bertold. Christian, maybe you could talk a little bit about enterprise mobile solutions and how they could reduce costs as well.
Yeah, as in many other industries too, we see a lot of potential in the automotive industry. For example, in assuring quality, in raising efficiency of processes, provide real-time data to allow faster decision-making, for example. Yeah. Every industry needs to replace old-fashioned paper-based activities at the moment with state-of-the-art tools in order to provide the employees a more convenient way to work and to access data or gather data. An example create technician dashboards on an iPad, do order management to spare parts management, or allow access of the technical documentation in a much more easier and convenient way than we have done it in the past using paper-based processes. Whenever you see a guy walking around with a pen and a clipboard, ask yourself, why is he not doing this on a tablet? This would allow him to do real-time input checks directly on the device, which would result in much better data and a higher data quality, reduction of failures, for example. He would have an online connection to the backend, which would the back office give more visibility on what he's doing right at the moment and which data he is currently entered. It would generally boost productivity and convenience, and we see potential use cases in both worlds, the white-collar world and the blue-collar world on the other hand. We have done this and identified this at a couple of customers right at the moment, and yeah, we are helping industries to leverage these use cases and examples.
Okay, thanks. Now, one thing I want to talk about is cloud computing. I think it's very interesting how it could fit into this industry. So, Bertold, maybe you could talk a little bit about how cloud computing fits into the strategies for automotive companies.
Sure. Well, the automotive OEMs and the suppliers as well, they are having challenging balance sheets, and the question is whether using their capital for IT might not be the best use of that capital. So cloud comes to rescue with an OPEX model to maintain cash for suppliers and production lines, manufacturing and all that stuff, while IT costs are just following the demand and are ongoing costs that helps them on the balance side. And what we already see in use for example, as I mentioned earlier, for car configurators supporting new launch or developing new sales mobilization processes and software, there's no reason why software developments and testing can't take place in public clouds. But with any technology advances, there are some early moves and some who are still hiding behind the issue of security. The trend is, however, visible. Moving towards IT as a service, starting in private clouds, is step by step moving to public cloud environments. And to pick up that question that came up in the chat, which are the players in the future that will support such and thriving in the cloud approaches. I mean, it's quite simple. The question is who brings the necessary ingredients for the recipe to the table, and that is first of all to understand the automotive industry and their processes and all that stuff, and then to provide the infrastructure, all the mobility aspects that Christian had already talked about, and then as I said, having a strong heritage in cybersecurity to guarantee that this environment is secure and safe, even if OEMs or suppliers put their business in a multi-tenant or in a public cloud. So speed and agility, minutes to deliver an instance environment for marketing campaigns, for example, or for new car launch. So cloud is the mechanism to accelerate the launch of products and to follow all these flexible demands. And first of all, of course, it's important to have the strategy in place to virtualize the apps, and then step by step with a smart approach migrate them into a new business model and pay as you play. In the end, you apply the best cloud solution to meet the flexible needs of the business customers. That's the model.
All right, thanks, Bertold. Now I also want to work in another question that we're getting via Twitter. We're getting lots of great questions, so please keep it up. We're about halfway through our broadcast here, and you can submit questions via Twitter using hashtag CSC Town Hall. Paul, this one to you. Generation Y is reportedly less interested in driving and buying cars. How can new tech entice younger buyers back into the showrooms?
Yeah, this is very interesting. Always being online is the topic for the Generation Y, if it is a Generation Y. And probably I'm not Generation Y, but maybe I can also use Twitter and a lot of other things. So we have to make sure that the user experience is going to meet the needs of the new generation. So if we're looking at one example, if I want to access my Facebook, I want to be able to Twitter from my car, I want to be able to do that. But I also have to make sure I can do that with the OEM, yeah, because that's one of my main sources of interaction. Let's look at another topic. We're actually working together with OEM to digitalize the whole showroom experience. Yeah, we've got flagship stores in major cities where there's actually no physical automobiles. We've just got large screens. We've got a whole series of tablets, iPad tablets, which are lying around, so that when people come into the store, they're waiting for the 5 minutes to engage with the salesperson, and they can actually play around with the tablet, maybe configure the car and make that available to the salesperson once you've done that. It's also not only important for the person who wants to make the purchase, but for his family and kids who are also there to make that experience very interesting and energized. So this is one area that we're actually working with OEMs today, is to energize, to mobilize, to make this whole experience, this retail experience when I enter a store, make that as exciting as playing around in the social media world. Now, this is a very interesting question because it plays also a role with the mobile business guys and the mobile business team. I don't know, Christian, do you want to add a couple of comments to that?
Yeah, well, personally, I think that the so-called Generation Y might get more interested in old-fashioned things like cars when the possibilities they expect from their everyday life items would be also accessible within a car. When we see that you are able to see the battery loading level of an electric car by a smartphone, or you have the chance to communicate between cars. What I really think is quite interesting is to see how younger people are using those car sharing concepts, new car sharing concepts. I can easily locate a cheap opportunity to get from A to B just via smartphone. All I need to do is sign up for some sort of service, and I can find the car, I can jump aboard the car, I can start the car, and I can, in the end, pay my ride just from a simple smartphone app. And this level of convenience, this level of integration into my very personal mobile device is something which opens up totally new perspectives to younger people. And I think if such a thing like a car gets that modern, this will for sure raise interest in the whole industry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I think I was on mute. Sorry about that. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that we talked about security. So these days, security is more important than ever for car companies to protect their competitive investments and protect their R&D. So what can car companies do to keep their information secure? Brocholt, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, and we already touched the security aspects. I mean, we got to watch out the intensive use of mobile devices and the globalization of the business, and also the mission critical need to protect these digital assets. And yeah, I mean, think for a moment of the vehicle as a mobile network operating outside your infrastructure, a rolling internet node, so to say. And of course, it is very nice that I can, probably in the future park my car in a multi-story car park just using my iPhone. And but what are the risks that with the same technology, with the same tools, with the same devices, someone can hack into my car, a mobile device, and steal my briefcase or even the car itself? I mean, all these risks are going along with the business. So CSC leverages, in that area, the heritage that we have built over 50 years now in North America, in our national security organizations, all the business that we do with the 3-letter agencies, to provide extremely secure solutions as a service, and to protect these critical digital assets. I mean, this is in our DNA, and so cybersecurity is no longer, on the backseat. It's a core strategic element, and especially these providers that have a deep heritage, a deep know-how in that area will benefit from the technology. When that business becomes reality and driving in the cloud goes live.
Okay, thanks. Now you also mentioned hacking into a car. We're going to need like antivirus for our cars now.
Well, I mean, that is definitely something we need to think of. And I mean, imagine just the case. I mean, these are technologies we will see in the future. You got a new car with a certain power and all that stuff, and then in the summer when you go to vacation, put the trailer behind your car. You just go back to your OEM and download an update for the engine steering, and that will provide you with some extra 100 horsepowers, to have a stronger car to pull the trailer. And by downloading that software, I mean, there's always a potential risk that you get some stuff downloaded that you don't want to see, some malicious software in your car, and for that you will need antivirus solutions. Sure.
Okay, interesting stuff. Thank you. All right, so there's a lot of things going on, right? We see things like Google Glass or location-based services, the ability to project information onto the windshields of cars. Christian, maybe you could talk more about these car IT innovations and where all of this is headed.
Yeah, it's not only happening in the car IT. It's more a basic trend that we see affecting more and more of our everyday items. Once we are allowed to develop and run software on those items, the possibilities are often just limited by our creativity. So if you give a developer a chance to write a piece of software, which is from a current point of view an app, this would bring an enormous variety of possibilities to those items. And that, of course, brings us to the fact that we will see a much broader integration and interaction between smartphones and car functions. That's what we have today, and even other things in the future. The smartphone could also interact with seats, with the air conditioning, with the infotainment. We already have that, and with personal settings. I already mentioned that. The challenge is that this would lead us to a highly heterogeneous platform landscape. The question is, if I write a piece of software, what's the right technology stack to do this on? What are the interfaces? What kind of standards will be established? We will require those standards. Otherwise, we will have a huge variety of different technologies, and this will lead to a uncontrollable diversity of different technologies, which will not be able to be handled by the developers anymore. From a broader perspective, development of apps for glasses, for example, for watches, for smart TVs, we already have this. For cars, this is already a reality. In the near future, we might see a Siri integration, for example, with our fridges, with our showers, with the whole house, for example. And in the car, maybe Siri will allow us to control the seat positions or open the trunk for us. And the question will be, how will all this be based on the same technological level to allow people to address all these different items and all these different things we have? This will be a challenge for sure, and one of the biggest questions in our current strategy projects, by the way.
Okay, thanks. There did come a question from Twitter. How far away are we from the driverless car, and what technologies are key to making it happen? Christian, can you talk about that?
I try to. Yeah. I think security is concern number one. We need, first of all, reliable systems which allow us to make this driverless trip safe. think this is the first of all. From a basic technological perspective, this is already reality. We see this. There's every year, I think there's kind of a challenge taking place in Texas, in the desert, where different teams are trying to build and show the best system and intelligence they have created throughout the year to demo exactly this idea of a driverless car. And this already works quite good. The only thing is how to integrate those technologies in our everyday life, in our infrastructure. And I think before we are talking about technological questions or challenges, we need to talk about the barriers we have in mind, about our mindsets. My question would be, do we really want this? Are people really ready to sit in a driverless car and hand over their safety into any kind of computer system? I would ask that first, and second question would be how to do it. And I think we already have a couple of answers to those questions.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe Jeff, yeah, I was just kick in with a couple of things. I remember this program called the Jensens a long time ago when they were up in the air and their vehicles were moving around. But actually, linking, if you look at the drones, the big topic at the moment, at least in Europe, drones are driverless vehicles flying through the air. So technology is already there to do all this thing. The other question that comes to my mind is that actually I get a kick out of driving my car on a German autobahn, yeah, at 210 kilometers per hour, whatever that is, miles per hour. So I think this driver experience is something that for me is very important. So maybe I'm not the Y generation, like I said before, but I think this driving experience is still something that people want to personally have. And it would be a shame if that was just a one-off event on a circuit, on a race circuit, rather than an everyday feature in life.
All right, thanks, Paul. Another question that came in online, I want to make sure we get to this too, and we may have covered this to some extent, but the question is there an opportunity to leverage driver behavior information sourced from navigation apps to better segment the market? Bertold, is that something you could answer?
Yeah, well, I touched that question earlier in some of my answers. You know, gathering all these big data from the different behavior patterns. On the one hand, is you know where are you traveling, where are you going, what is your behavior in that area, what are your preferred restaurants, hotels, and all that stuff. That of course will be of interest to many of companies, hotel chains, restaurants, marketing companies, shopping malls or whatsoever, that are interested in the driver as a customer and to address that one. But also when you see this in combination with all the new technologies that we develop, adaptive seating in the car, where the car already reacts immediately to the behavior of the driver in the car, and this behavior patterns, where drivers are going and what are preferred roads they take and all that stuff will be another addition to that one. So there's, again, as I said earlier, with all this big data stuff, that is a business opportunity that at the moment we even can't foresee, the potential that is in there, and very often I'm wondering, that the market is not taking up that, or the public not taking up this discussion, because of course there's a lot of risk in it. Nevertheless, I think this is an ongoing development that we will see over the next years. And maybe to add a little answer to what Christian earlier said with respect to the driverless car. I mean, we have this already when in airports, when you go from terminal to terminal, you use a driverless train. In many cities, you see driverless subways. So, I mean, the technology is already there with respect to software and all that stuff, and connectivity, cloud connection. The only challenge that I see at the moment, and Paul brought this up, when you make changes, moving from the right to the left lane at a speed of 200, 250 or whatsoever. The sensor technology at the moment is, to me, the decisive element, because we know going at that high speed, you need to have a very sophisticated sensor technology that goes way back behind your car and also looks to the front to identify everything that is around your car, even that for some milliseconds you are not connected to the net and you have not the information of all the rolling internet nodes around you, then still the car has to be safe and has to rely on his independent technology, which is inbuilt, and the sensor capabilities and the technology, that is the decisive element in that area, to my understanding.
Okay, thanks, Bertold. Now, we kind of covered this a little bit when we were talking about Generation Y and their experience at dealerships, but Paul, maybe you can expand a little bit on how, at the end of the day, the car is sold or purchased at a dealership. What's the impact of technology on that?
Well, that's interesting. If you look at the overall process, you've got three parties involved. You've got the OEM on the one side, who's manufacturing the cars and giving the brand. You've got the importers or the national sales organization on the other, and you've got the dealers as a third step in that process. You've actually got some dealer groups and some other retail outlets. So there's three parties to that chain, and in some cases, the processes and the IT is not actually connected all the way through. Obvious example is I go and configure a car on my OEM, and when I go and walk into the dealership, I expect my local salesman to have my configuration already on his screen. And if he doesn't, then my retail experience is not very high. So there's quite a lot of work involved in actually enabling. We talked about the basic customer data before, the different pots of customer data across the different parts of the organization. But that really is becoming key to enable my customer experience. If I look at the way that the salespeople have to interact at the moment, so they will sit down and wait behind the desk and wait for somebody to come into the dealership, and then they go and speak to them. But we also talked about how to identify potential customers in the internet, and how to interact and how to engage with them. So this may be a different skill set which is needed, which is engaging and mobilizing through the web in the different social media platforms to try and not only identify and capture these people. So it was one Japanese importer in North America actually already involved in this process. So they started off with somebody who was just surfing the web and identifying people and bringing them into the dealership, and then passing them on to the sales guy in the dealership. Now, actually, the process was so successful that they've actually been offered a job as in the dealer, sitting behind the desk. They're sitting behind the desk, they're surfing the web, they're engaging with the potential customers, and when this potential customer comes in the dealership, they're actually selling to that person, getting the sale and getting the sales commission. So there is a huge impact on the dealers in terms of processes and systems, which you have to implement to make sure we're sharing this information with the OEM, but also the impact on the sales guy himself and how he operates and how he works, and maybe he needs training, or maybe we need to start introducing the Generation Y into the dealership as the new car salesmen, with the tech-savvy people, engage with the other tech-savvy customers in the right way. So I like the question, Jeff, because it raises a lot of the issues that are currently out there in the market.
All right, thank you very much. All right, another question in from online, and I'm not sure if this is too technical, but I'll give it a shot anyway. Christian, maybe this one will go to you. Any thoughts on what QNX is doing? Example, OTA software update to car ECUs, apps for cars via Android, HTML, and so forth. I don't even know what OTA software is or ECUs, so if we could try to decode that for me.
Okay, I try. I think OTA might stand for over-the-air updates, which means that updates for the platform, for the operating system, for applications, for settings, for anything could be pushed or at least transferred over the air without the car being plugged into any kind of cable. So that's what everybody of us is assuming when we have any kind of mobile device at the moment. Okay, the question was, what about those updates? To be honest, I have a focus on the German car OEMs at the moment, and I don't see those things happening at the moment. and not in the near future, since they are very, very concerned about security and safety at first. It is at the moment even hard to get those kind of software updates when you go to the garage and get any kind of maintenance stop. They won't give you the newest version of the software, since they say, yeah, you don't need it, never change the running system. That's the number one paradigm, number one rule they are following at the moment. Other vendors like Ford are much more open to that. You see that using QNX as an open platform. By the way, don't know if somebody knew that QNX is also the basis for the current BlackBerry operating system. So everybody who's driving a Ford and having QNX is basically having BlackBerry running in his car. You should keep that in mind. And I think we need to answer a lot of security and safety questions before we can talk about these common functions we see in a usual mobile device, like all the OTA updates or whatever. Using third-party applications, this is basically the same. Currently, if you download an application on your Android device and you run it and you see it crashes, you might be frustrated, but that's all. That's the worst damage it can result in. But installing an application which was not tested or certified or qualified in any kind of way on your car, and that makes your car crash or makes your car not braking anymore, or crashes your cockpit instruments or whatever, would result in much higher, much critical effects. And that's the reason why I do not see an integration like we have it on mobile devices at the moment, why I don't see that in the near future using in the car, on car platforms. That's basically for any kind of in-car platform. It's not just only for QNX, but I think QNX is the most advanced regarding the openness to third-party developers and integration of those kind of services.
All right, thanks. Bertold, any thoughts on that?
Sure, Jeff. I mean, the question with the engine software, the keyword in the automotive industry is flashing. You know, remote flashing over the air today is a technology that's feasible. You know, it could be done immediately. At the moment, you can see that the OEMs are hesitating to do that, and you still get your engine software flashed when you're, you know, in the garage for the regular maintenance or whatever. They don't do it over the air at the moment. The technology is there. I could imagine the future that we have two different networks in the car. One for all, you know, the car technology, the engine, security, and all that stuff, and the second network for all the entertainment and all the stuff that is not, you know, related to sensor technology, to the engine, to driving software and all that stuff. And then, you know, we have a very secure environment. What is the car technology? And probably a less secure and much more open for all the entertainment stuff, whether it's video and music and or comfort functions, you know, a new update for the seat software, whatsoever. That could be, you know, could be seen in the future. And another technology that everyone already knows, you know, find my iPhone, locate it down if you lost it. I mean, this is something, you know, people could use if they can't find the car anymore in the garage, or, you know, you hear this very often that people can't find the car anymore in the town. But also when the car gets stolen, that could be an idea that, you know, the car gets located and, you know, shut down by the owner so that it can't be, you know, driven anymore. This is things we might see in the future. The only challenge is, you know, this should not happen when the car is going 200 on the Autobahn. Then press the, you know, stop button. So, but there's solutions for that. And but yeah, flashing over the air is possible, and you know, I think it's a question of years, and then we're going to see that as well.
All right, thanks, Bertold. I just want to sneak in one last question, and then maybe back to Bertolt for closing remarks. But I think we kind of promised that we would talk a little bit about procurement and supply chain. So, Paul, maybe you could talk a bit about the major challenges for OEMs in the procurement environment and how those could be addressed.
Okay, I'll keep it quick because we're running out of time. I'll maybe just focus on three areas. One is that they move towards a new drivetrain electric vehicle. Of course, you're starting up with new supplier networks. You've got to have a different way of procuring and engaging these people, different model. Second is when you're talking about globalization, building new plants in different locations, you've got to build up a completely new supplier network. And of course, very key in these new, especially in the new locations, new geographies, is the quality. You get your quality wrong, new product launch, new country, doesn't look very good for the overall brand. Maybe the last point I would say on procurement, there's quite a lot of companies still have old mainframe procurement systems. Not sure whether that's the sustainable business model. There's obvious reasons why that is the case, why they still have them, but I see it as a big push. And there will be a big need to change that going forward in the future. And moving away from the mainframes, probably towards more, obviously, cloud-based systems, cloud-based models, because that's as a service and it keeps your IT costs down and don't need to expend any capital expenditure in the future architectures.
All right, thanks, Paul. Bertolt, any final thoughts? We got a couple of minutes left.
Well, I mean, I think that the most interesting thing of the topic we talked about today, I mean, that this driving in the cloud approach shows that there's a huge potential to expand the business beyond the point in the old days when the car was delivered to the consumer and where more or less the business ended, except some maintenance stuff that was provided in the following years. But now there's a huge potential for the OEMs, for the suppliers, but also for the ICT industry to expand downstream business, social media, the security elements, the big data. We talked a lot about this behavior pattern analysis and all the business we can derive from that, and that will really increase the potential business that we can provide around the car and around the driver in a rolling internet node. That will open up tremendous revenues in the future, and also will expand the business around the car. So tremendous opportunities.
All right, thanks, Bertolt. All right, so I want to thank everyone for joining us for this live CSC Town Hall event, especially our speakers, Bertolt Pukta, Christian Kloppel, and Paul Scott. The recording will be available shortly, and in the meantime, please visit csc.com/townhall to see what exciting topics we will be covering in the coming weeks. Have a great day.